6 months ago, we did a video about why we quit staying in Airbnb. It has gotten almost 500,000 views and thousands of comments. We heard from many people who were frustrated and disappointed in their Airbnb stays. They felt like we did, that the company has changed for the worse over the past 15 years, and it was no longer their preferred booking platform.
So we took all of those comments, considered our own experience of staying in 45 different listings, and came up with a list of 10 ways that we think Airbnb can improve the platform and their policies for the guests who choose to stay at an Airbnb.
We want to root for Airbnb because we see it fits many needs of the world traveler, and it has tons of potential if the company tries to address the issues of the people who book the rooms. That's what today's video is all about, so let's go.
We're John and Bev, and we are the Retirement Travelers.
If you're just finding us, we hope that you'll hit subscribe and follow along on our journey. We're also on Instagram, so if you're wondering where in the world we're at the moment, we always keep our location updated there.
We are full-time travelers, and we're staying in Airbnb almost exclusively. We had many wonderful experiences and stayed in many amazing properties, and most hosts were exemplary. With that said, we encountered many problems with the other half. Either they weren't what was advertised, had fundamental problems, or the policies of Airbnb left a bad taste in our mouths.
When we did our video, we received thousands of comments and concerns from other Airbnb guests who experienced many of the same problems we did. You know, many offered valuable advice about what they hoped someone in corporate Airbnb might read and be motivated to change. Some of these stories were heartbreaking, especially the ones where well-planned vacations were ruined because of the negative experience they had with Airbnb.
We also heard from hosts who were not happy with our take on our own experiences, but we also heard from many who empathized. Lots of them said that their hands were tied and they were frustrated too with not only the company, but with the undesirable guests that they have to deal with on a daily basis. We understand where they are coming from. Hearing their stories was also heartbreaking.
So let's get started on the 10 things that we think Airbnb could do to improve their experience for their guests. Now, we don't know the ins and outs of hosting, so we'll stick to our perspective.
Recently, Airbnb made a big change towards transparent pricing, or so they said. When you search for a stay, you are given all the listings that match your request. You are given a nightly price and a total in gray to the right. If you click on this link on the right, you are given the breakdown for the listing.
Alternatively, you can toggle a switch up here at the top to get the full price. Now, Airbnb instituted this change and said it was to be more transparent with their pricing. The problem is it falls short of what the guests had asked for, and that was full transparency. You know, what we want is the full price along with all the fees and taxes. Full transparency would give you a total price for each night.
Now, if you toggle on the switch, you get the full price, but they don't give you the breakdown. You don't know what the cleaning fee and the Airbnb cut is unless you go back and forth between the two pages.
Without the toggle, you get a nightly price which doesn't correspond to the actual nightly price that includes the fees and taxes. This is misleading and is what Airbnb said they were combating with the toggle, but it's still not right in our opinion. You know, give the customer a straightforward answer and don't try to trick us. Even their total on the toggled side doesn't include the tourist taxes, which can also be very expensive. Other platforms give the totals correctly, and Airbnb can too. Going along with the previously mentioned, just eliminate the cleaning fees across the board. Cleaning fees are expenses of doing business, and that should be in the total cost of the room. When we go to a hotel, we're not asked to pay for a cleaning fee.
Yeah, most people we know and heard from hate the idea of paying a high rate for a cleaning fee and then required to clean up after themselves. We heard from many hosts on our last video who said that cleaning up after yourself should be understood. Well, then don't charge this fee separately. It's like saying clean your house before your housekeeper arrives.
Asking us to load a dishwasher is fine, but don't ask us to carry out the trash and do the laundry and then charge us a really high fee. Many hosts said that guests leave their places a mess, and we do think this is unacceptable. But the truth is that if guests are leaving their trash, paying for this cleaning fee is probably the reason. They are paying someone else to clean it up.
Once we switched from Airbnb, we took a big sigh of relief when we started using Booking.com. It was much easier to book and research. The entire site is just set up so that the consumer has an easier experience looking for a stay. Our research has taken less time and we love it.
On the last video, some people assumed that we never did research before booking. The truth was we were doing a lot of research, much more than we currently do now. We spent hours picking places.
When we book, we want to have lots of filters within easy reach. Our point is that the system Airbnb has set up was designed by a great team of artists, but not by a great team of travelers. Just make it easier and straightforward. It's beautiful, all right. It's just not very functional. It doesn't really give us the information we need without having to jump through hoops to get it.
Airbnb has two review systems. The consumer reviews the property and the host reviews the guest. Let's talk about each of these.
Our problem with reviews of properties is that sometimes, and we don't really know how often this happens, but hosts can campaign for reviews to be removed. They must involve the company to get it removed. But if the review violates a policy or they can prove that the review is unfair, Airbnb will remove it. It is a very subjective process, of course.
Yes, very subjective. Now, we've seen several videos on YouTube where strategies are taught to hosts about how to go about removing reviews. Now, in our humble opinion, if hosts can have reviews removed, consumers lose trust in the system and reviews become pretty much meaningless. Now, we've heard from many people who left bad reviews and they were removed.
We have also noticed that when a host cancels at the last minute on a guest, no review gets posted, and consumers in the future have no way to know that the host canceled. In our opinion, an automatic post should happen by the company in the review section every single time. There should be consequences for this practice since it leaves the consumer without a place to stay.
Now, here's a pro tip. If you are canceled on, make the host press the button to cancel, not you. It's their cancellation and they should do it. Don't succumb to their pressure.
The second part is that hosts rate guests. We heard from many people who said that hosts gave them a bad review, and while they were loyal customers before, they decided that this was unfair and they chose not to give their business to Airbnb again. This hurts everyone in the system. Now, this system might be loved by Airbnb hosts, but consumers hate it, and it doesn't build loyalty with the customer. We understand if there is a problem guest, but they should be reported to the company and the company should block them from future stays. It's just much easier to do without rating guests. It's kind of demeaning.
Other platforms like Booking.com offer great loyalty programs and Airbnb doesn't. As a full-time traveler, we value opportunities to get a discount. Booking has 3 levels of loyalty, and oftentimes we are given a discount, an upgrade, a free breakfast with our bookings. Now, this really matters to us, and we became frustrated that Airbnb didn't offer anything to us.
There were times when we felt that we were being recognized and valued would have gone a long way toward us wanting to book another stay. Airlines and hotels all have great programs, and there are many examples in the travel industry that do a great job. We just like to see this addressed in the future, and so would our viewers. Nobody that frequents a platform wants to feel like a number. They want to feel included and recognized for their loyalty.
Now, this is a big issue for us, and it was one of our biggest concerns. Now, in the U.S., we're so used to having smoke alarms and detectors that we don't even think twice about whether they're present. It's illegal to have a hotel without them. But abroad, most Airbnb units do not have them. We were shocked to learn that you have to toggle a switch in the amenities section to search for a place that actually has smoke detectors.
Yeah, we heard from one family whose daughter almost died in an apartment building in Europe because it didn't have an alarm. A neighbor banged on the door and rescued her from a blazing fire. This should never happen. And since smoke detectors cost less than $20, Airbnb should require every listing to have one in order to be listed on their site. It's a dereliction of duty, in our opinion. There is no excuse.
One safety item we get when we stay in a hotel are room keys that get rekeyed after every use. Now, this is not the case with Airbnb. The risk is there that when you have a physical room key to a unit that hasn't been changed. Now, we always love getting to a unit that has a lock pad that changes with each guest. This is an upgrade that Airbnb could easily require in many locations. Having a physical key allows a guest to go get it copied, and that's just not okay these days.
Another issue we heard about was cameras in the units. Airbnb has a strict policy that forbids cameras in bedrooms and bathrooms, but they still allow cameras in living spaces. They ask that the host not hide them, and they ask that they disclose the use of security cameras. This simply means that a unit must click the box, security cameras in use. For many places we stayed, they were outside where they should be. But we always knew that this could mean that they were present inside of the unit. This made us uneasy, and we believe it is a violation of privacy to have any cameras inside of a unit. This needs to change, and we heard from others who see this as a problem too.
A big problem we encountered, and we heard this from many people, was renting a place from a corporation and not a local host like they thought. Now, in our case, we realized that after we checked in that the unit didn't have a local owner, but a corporate owner who managed many properties. You know, these corporate owners hire a local property manager who checks people in all over the city in different units. Now, we were left to wait on them, and they were pretty impersonal most of the time.
Now, this is not the Airbnb model when the company started. Mm-hmm. The platform was a way for travelers to rent an extra room or a garage apartment. What has happened, and it's been for the worst, is that investors buy up many units. These units always are decorated the nicest, but they offer the worst service and no personal touch. Our viewers like meeting locals, and they want to know who they are renting from.
Our viewers want a distinction given in the form of a badge that hosts are indeed a local owner with one or two places for rent. Travelers want to support local hosts, but not necessarily corporations.
Probably the number one concern we heard from viewers is that the platform is negatively impacting local communities and making the purchase of homes unattainable for local residents who need them. We believe this is the corporate investor that is creating the biggest problem.
We hate traveling to places where we know locals have been pushed out. Now, Venice is a great example. Now, it's a lovely city, but we rarely see children playing in the streets anymore. 15 years ago, we saw families. Last year, we saw very few. It was jam-packed with tourists, and corporations have been buying up properties to list on Airbnb and completely transforming the city for the worse. It's just a very sad thing to see. Our viewers don't want to contribute to this, and they don't mind renting an attic loft or a spare room, but they find this a complete turnoff.
Airbnb needs to address this issue as soon as possible. Corporate responsibility is important, and without clarity of their impact, they could be creating irreparable harm in the lives of locals.
The last one, customer service, received a lot of complaints. We heard from many who had horror stories of inept or inconsiderate representatives who did not take their complaints seriously. You know, when I worked at my previous job, I learned that mistakes often happen when there was inadequate training.
We're pretty sure no one starts out in customer service believing that they can become disillusioned and uncompassionate to the plight of the customer, but it happens. With companies like Airbnb, there's just no recourse when you reach one of these people. You know what we mean, but Airbnb needs to realize that this loses loyal customers faster than anything else. So change it, overhaul it, or something, but take it seriously and address it.
Our next video is our previous Airbnb video, and we wanted to give a big shout out to Airbnb for making a big change since that time. They no longer keep the service fee when customers cancel 3 stays in a 6-month period, like what happened to us. You know, we were very happy to hear this, and we're happy to see that change.
So that's our 10 things we would say to Airbnb. If you have other suggestions or you'd like to leave your story in hopes that someone at Airbnb will read it, please go ahead and leave the comment. We will certainly read it.
And we'll see you next week.
Be sure to hit subscribe and follow along on our retirement journey around the world.